Hello, I'm John with Roadkill Incorporated. Alright, so I'm going to the recycler today to pick up yet more computers, but first I'm loading up all the scrap to take back, which is this pile here. Not the game machines, just the laptops. These are older A1181s and iBook G3s and G4s. I've stripped all the usable parts like hard drives, RAM, batteries, and I'll get something like $400 in scrap value for this pile, which is not bad. I paid around $10 each or so for most of them. Anyway, this is the junk that has been sorted out from the recoverable machines, which are in the other room, and these here all have multiple issues. 90% have smashed screens, plus other problems like bad boards, severe discoloration, physical damage, just generally mutilated and destroyed in any given way that makes it difficult to go forward with them. So I'm the guy who complains about people scrapping computers, so you might be wondering why I'm now scrapping piles of laptops myself. The quick answer is, unfortunately, there actually is a point at which it's not practical to repair and rebuild, and so recycling is what makes the most sense. I hate to say that, because I like to see every computer repaired, and as I always say, recycling is a failure, because you have failed to reuse. Reuse is what you want. Recycling is better than dumping it in a landfill, but it's still a failure, so it's impossible for me to ever feel too great about this. But reality is, even the nicer computers from this lot that I decided to save, which are in the other room, even those are super hard to complete, because you never get enough parts from the scrap to finish all the computers. And so you're talking about needing a $20 battery, an $8 hard drive, a $12 charger. So just those three components add up to $40, and the machines barely sell for more than that, so it's already a tough proposition. I ship a lot of the nicer ones to people around the country who just happen to have the parts, because it's just not viable to spend $40 on new parts. So yeah, you ship the computers to where the good used parts are. It's super tough though, and keep in mind I'm talking about the nicer ones. So for the crappy ones here, it's really just not viable. There are lots of good parts in these, not the valuable parts I mentioned before, but some have good optical drives and boards and parts that technically work but are ugly or damaged. One way to go is you can sell these parts on eBay, and maybe once every 6 weeks you'll sell an optical drive for $10, but that's not worth it. That's not a business. Or also, you could conceivably, say, spend an hour breaking down a bunch of these and build them into a working laptop and then spend the $40 to complete it. But in that case, on top of spending money for no profit, you're also devaluing your time at that point. And the thing is, too, meanwhile, there's the nicer ones in the other room that need attention. So how do you justify spending days of your time on the crappiest of the crappy when just the good ones are enough to take up all your time? And not only that, but there are also good unibody pros that need attention, too. And those are actually worth money. And meanwhile, still, I have a pile of Retinas that I haven't looked at in 6 months because I'm dealing with thousands of super old laptops. It makes no sense. That's the irony of the whole situation. If you take on too much and make decisions based on idealism and emotion, you just drown in it. There's a saying I really like. It's something like, if you take on the world always wins. And I think that's really true. And it really points out that all of us need to narrow our focus down to something very small, because it's only with a really razor-sharp, narrow focus that we have a chance of winning a few battles now and then. I want to be clear, too, I don't want to discourage refurbishing by sounding so cynical about all this. I really wish it was viable to refurbish every machine, and I totally applaud anyone who spends time building a super old laptop, because, I am that guy a lot of the time. But unfortunately in this world, everything does come down to time and money, and there is an absolute limit. It's like that hierarchy of needs you probably heard about. You have to have oxygen or you die. There is no worrying about food or shelter or poetry if you're dead because you didn't get enough oxygen. Well, fortunately or unfortunately, money is the oxygen of business. There just has to be money in play, and you have to be making money. Once you have money, you don't have to care about it, and you can think about other more interesting things, but unfortunately it's a requirement. In order to refurbish absolutely every machine, I would have to be independently wealthy with millions of dollars that I was willing to throw away, and I'd have to hire 10 people, and instead of being a functional business, it would be a charity because it wouldn't be making enough money to survive on its own. And hey, I'm all for all of that, but I can't personally pull that off, and honestly, I don't know anyone who can. And even then, even with some sort of magical charity refurbishing operation, there still wouldn't be time or money to fix all the laptops, because the truth is, we just produce too much stuff and we throw too much stuff away. We're the richest society on earth, and even our trash is worth billions of dollars. It's totally ridiculous. We produce too much and we decide it's all trash after a few years, and there's just no way to deal with it all appropriately. There's no way. The only answer, if there is any kind of answer, is to slow down production and use things longer. But come on, we know that that's not going to happen on any kind of mass scale. We can hope, but, good luck. And we're kind of stuck. Another obvious approach I think about a lot is to give stuff away to people who have the time and resources. People ask me for junk computers all the time, and my response is always, great, PayPal me $60 so I can ship you a box of 12 laptops. And I always get excited, hey, some laptops are going to get fixed up, but then I get no response. The second I ask people to simply pay the shipping, it becomes a no-go. Similar to that, a lot of people want me to ship computers overseas, which is a great idea in theory, because in other parts of the world the time and effort can be justified and the stuff is more valuable there. But again, when they realize the condition, and when they actually see what a pallet costs to ship to Africa or wherever, plus the ridiculous customs fees and other red tape, it's always a no-go. So yeah, it's painful, but at the end of the day, you have to draw a line somewhere, or you just drown in the sea of broken electronics. It's kind of funny, but one analogy I always think of, it's like if you have a pet store, you see a lot of dead pets. You witness the end of that thing that you care about because you're the one right there to see it. If you have a nursery, you see a lot of dead plants, etc., etc. And so if you refurbish computers, you become the Grim Reaper for a lot of computers and end up making that final judgment call. It's just the way it is. So anyway, that's the end of my lecture. And I'm actually interested, though, to hear what people think of this. Any ideas that aren't occurring to me, I'd love to hear. You can post them in the notes. One obvious one is to refurbish computers locally in order to avoid the shipping cost. One important fact I've realized is that any cost you can eliminate definitely prolongs the life of machines. If you can eliminate shipping, fees, cost of parts, regulatory nonsense, overhead caused by certification programs, any of that makes the prospect far more viable. So if you're within range of Minneapolis, where I am, and you want to work something out, please let me know. Anyway, enough talking. It's time to load these into the van, so I'll be back soon. Alright, so I've loaded all the dead laptops into the serial killer van, and we're ready to go. So yeah, this is how I do it. I put them all on a pallet. The recycler uses a forklift to get the pallet out of the van. Then they load in a pallet or two of laptops that I'm buying from them, and that's it. Or that's how it goes in theory. Sometimes it gets a little messier. You've seen some pictures of how it goes some of the time. But anyway, yeah, that's it. I'm headed out, and I'll talk to you soon. Alright, so I'm back, and this is what the pallet looked like when I left. Pretty nice and neat pallet. And let's see what the pallet looks like now. How much did it shift? Okay, a little bit over there, but not too terrible. Could be much worse. I'll show you what it looks like from the side. Yeah, the whole thing just shifted a little bit, but it's pretty much intact, so that's good news. So I'll take this apart and we'll see what we've got. All right, so it's all unpacked. The wonders of YouTube, 10 seconds later and it's all done. Amazing how that works. So yeah, interesting trip. There was a discrepancy. There were supposed to be more A1278s, the 13-inch Pros. So they're going to give me a credit, which is fine. That happens now and then. It's hard to keep a perfect count of these things. And I did tell my recyclers that I'm done with A1181s and iBooks because I'm just drowning in them. I have these nightmares about just suffocating under a wall of computers that falls onto me. It's just, I just have to be realistic. My rule is always buy everything you can, but be the best trash person. But there's also reality. There's also the fact that I just have limited capacity, and it just will not work for my company if I take on thousands and thousands of computers that are not viable. So I'm taking the risk, I'm pushing back, and you know, I think it'll work out. They all like dealing with me, and I think they realize too that these old computers are at the end of their life. You know, it's not like they're gonna find 1,000 other people who are willing to take those and pay them what I was paying them. In fact, I think they probably think I'm kind of crazy to be paying them what I've been paying them. So they've been making more money than they should probably on these super old computers because I'm just crazy enough to buy them. So I feel pretty good about turning these guys down at this point. The fear is that I'm just not gonna get some of the good vintage stuff, you know, the 12-inch PowerBooks, the super old stuff, although that pile is not looking too hot. So yeah, that's the fear. Because, you know, I am making the sorting process harder for them. Instead of just being able to say, hey, if it has an Apple symbol, I'll buy it, I'm now saying, you know, I'll buy certain ones and I won't buy others. So I'm making the sorting process harder for them. And I know how these guys work. Sometimes that just means they don't bother, and you know, you miss out on a lot of the good stuff. But whatever, it's a gamble. It's a gamble I have to take because I just can't drive myself crazy with this old stuff anymore. I have to move forward. So that's that. So this might be the last pile of A1181s you see me feature here. And, you know, good riddance. These are just, look at that. They're just so nasty. I don't know. I call them swamp computers because it's like they were in a swamp and they got pulled out. White unibodies, pretty good lot of white unibodies. They're very dirty though. Here are the 13-inch unibodies. They don't look that great, honestly. They're about 50 short on those. That was the discrepancy I was talking about. 15-inch Pros, aluminum 15-inch Pros. And this is interesting. They had 150 OEM adapters for me today, which is really nice. Recyclers don't often get the chargers for the computers. And if they do, they come in this giant, nasty, you know, tumbleweed thing that's just, you just don't want to mess with. They're just really messed up. But this place does a good job. It's a variety. It's, you know, 60, 85 watt, MagSafe 2, MagSafe 1. I actually want them to be MagSafe 1 because I don't use too many MagSafe 2s. But nice lot of 150 chargers. I usually buy chargers from China. I have a China contact that I bought from for literally like 12 years. Pretty high quality ones from there. So I have to resort to buying from China now and then because you just don't get that many from recyclers. But you know, when I get a pile like this, that's nice. I can put off my China purchase for a little while. Actually, the new ones from China are really easy because you know, they're new. They're in a nice little box. You don't have to open it up or test it or clean it or anything. Whereas even these are nicely prepared, but most of them still you have to take a look at. You don't want to send someone a charger that has like a frayed cable, that kind of thing. So, but anyway, so yeah, it was nice to see these today. We've also got some iBook PowerBook chargers, which is good because I'm a little short on those. But yeah, just typical lot otherwise, nothing too exciting. Oh, I did get some Mac Minis. These are cool. These are, I think, 2010 and 11. I think the 10, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the 10 is the cutoff for the optical drive. This is upside down with a bunch of parts on it. And then the 2011, I think, I could be wrong, is the one, yeah, where there's no optical drive. These are kind of in pieces. So yeah, so these actually aren't the ones you want. You want the 2012s. 2011 can only go to High Sierra, which kind of limits their functionality. But I do like these silver and black ones. The previous ones, the like silver and white ones, they had this external brick that was always a pain because the recyclers would trash the brick. And then you have all these Mac Minis that you need to buy a brick for. And the brick was literally like 40 bucks. It probably still is. So those were just awful. You'd get mountains of those, and there's this expensive component, the power brick, that you don't have. And so what do? These take a more standard power connector here. So you can go on eBay and get power cables for $3 for these. So these sell for slightly less than 13-inch 2012 Pros, the MD101 LLA, but they're still, they're still not a bad little machine. And I'm talking about the 2012 version of these. These go for like $100, $120, something like that. No one's really looking for a 2011 or a 2010. 2010 may be a little bit because of the optical drive. One of the last machines to have an optical drive. And these are great to put in your your stereo system and to still have a DVD player in a machine like that. Makes sense. So anyway, I'm definitely rambling. Sorry for the strange video. I know it's sort of in several chunks and it's a little bit disjointed, but anyway, that is it, and I will talk to you soon.